Well, I think we'll get started here. We're at a couple minutes after 8. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And especially as we're talking about how much easier everything is technology-wise these days. I think we're actually especially grateful in this day of Zoom fatigue that you've taken the time to log in after a day of Zoom school and Zoom work to be with us this evening. So thanks for being here. I'm very excited to introduce our panelists to you tonight, all faculty members of the Eastman Voice, Opera, and Vocal Coaching faculty. I just want to give you a few pointers before I do that on how this webinar works. It is a webinar and not a meeting, which is why if you are at all concerned about how you did your hair and what's behind you in your camera view, no worries, we can't see you. Yeah, too late, Tim. But you can see us, of course, and hear us, and I hope. And the way that you can interact with us will be through the Q&A function. So the chat has been disabled, so the panelists can use that to communicate with each other, but the Q&A is open for the attendees to submit their questions. And you can certainly submit questions at any time through the hour. We're going to plan to go about an hour this evening. And if we don't get to your question right away, do not despair. It just means we're going to try to keep things, somewhat organized by topic as we go. But this is very much a conversation and not a presentation. So we're certainly hoping for some back and forth, certainly among the faculty, and then of course with you folks at home tuning in. So with that, I am delighted to introduce our panel. We have joining us, and I'm always tempted to say to my left, but I don't actually know where she is in your view. But Catherine Szczynski is here. She is the chair of the Eastman Voice, Opera, and Vocal Coaching Department. She is also the Martin and Corazon Sanders Professor of Voice. And welcome, Catherine. And we also have Nicole Cabell. She is an Assistant Professor of Voice and also an Eastman alumna, I should add. Alumna extraordinaire. And another Eastman alum is Professor Timothy Long, our Associate Professor of Opera and the Music Director of the Eastman Opera Theater. So welcome to all of you. And what I thought we would do first is just sort of have a round table opening remarks. If each of you could say something about what it is that you do here at Eastman, kind of your Eastman experience, and then a little bit about what you think distinguishes the voice department at Eastman. And why don't we start with Professor Szczynski.
Good evening, everyone. So delighted that we could join together tonight. This school that we are a part of is an absolute treasure. I am entering, I think it's my 13th year here. I started in 2008 after having taught at another university for 14 years. And all of that on the heels of a rather extensive performing career, which I gleefully kept up as long as possible. And I still perform occasionally, even in the confines of the Eastman and Rochester community. I'm a mezzo-soprano, and I just adore being able to do what I love the best in an environment that has so many phenomenal artists and scholars and music lovers, as well as working with some of the most talented students I've ever had the privilege of knowing. It's a rare environment that we inhabit here, and one that has a huge sense of purpose, an absolute love of the teaching and the learning of music, constant work at improving oneself. This is an environment that is a conservatory of the highest standing, that is conjoined to a beautiful research university that affords our students chances to do dual majors, to take courses in other subject matter areas, and really to fulfill their educational dreams. So I feel very, very lucky to be here, and I'm just delighted that we get a chance to spend some time to share our love of Eastman with you.
Wow.
Thank you, Catherine. And Nicole, let's go to you.
I figured I was next. Second in your introduction. Everything Catherine said. I have to not to wax poetic about my colleagues, but you won't find a better group of people, both personalities, but also accomplishments. If you haven't heard Catherine, run to YouTube and look her up and listen to her videos. And the rest of the faculty as well, they're amazing. Really everything Catherine said is how I feel, and I've only been at Eastman for, I guess it's been 3 months now. I am a brand new faculty member.
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers. Water. I'm a brand new yes, faculty member, but I'm hardly a new Eastman participant, if you will, because it was probably the year you all were born, around the year you were born, that I graduated from Eastman. I went late 90s, early 2000s for my undergraduate degree at Eastman, and I completely agree that it is conservatory quality education alongside a very, very rigorous academic education. And that is very stimulating for the students, and the student body as a result is amongst the most intelligent, astute, ambitious group of people that I've had the pleasure of teaching. I'm happy to say that in the time that I've graduated and the time that I've returned, the spirit is still the same. And one thing that I remember taking away from my time when I graduated was, it was one of the most remarkable settings for building relationships. And I don't know if that's because of the environment, because, you know, we're rather small. It's a city, but it's a smaller city than, of course, New York City, Chicago, and you're all in this kind of small area together, and we're all a family. Boom, the first week you're a family, and everybody looks out for each other. Everybody is very supportive. There's no cattiness or backstabbing or competition in the wrong way. It's all encouragement, and everybody's competing with themselves. So you're producing fabulous results that way, but everybody's really looking out for each other. Some of the best friends I ever met in my life, I'm still friends with, and I'm married to one of them. That is the power of the Eastman relationship that we build. Yeah, and the only other thing I want to add is if you haven't seen the halls that, that make up Eastman, again, look it up on YouTube. My husband used to say that he would show his friends pictures and they would say, "You're going to Hogwarts." So it's so beautiful, and the halls are so distinguished and old, but in just a really beautiful way. It's really inspirational. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. I can go on and on. I love our school, and I really can only speak very highly. So I'm looking forward to hearing your questions and speaking with you and seeing again some of you guys that I've already worked with.
Okay, I guess it's my turn, and if you see a dog's head occasionally, my unruly basset hound mix is begging for treats. So you may hear a bark or a howl or see a head. So I agree with of course what they have said, and my story is this is my 3rd year on faculty. I'm music director of operas, so I conduct operas here, and I coach 1st-year masters and 1st-year doctoral singers, and teach a course in opera coaching. I'm older than Nicole, and I went to school here. I was at Eastman from 1990 to 1994, and they were some of the best years of my life. And like Nicole said, I made lifelong friends in those years, and there are many people from that time of my life that I still work with from year to year. They're some of my most trusted colleagues. There are people from my class and from other classes who are running major opera companies and major orchestras. You run into Eastman colleagues everywhere you go, and there's a real loyalty to one another in the world. Just as an example of how people feel about Eastman, from my time, when I got this job as music director, I had so many people writing me, former Eastman students, who said, "You are so lucky you get to go back," because everybody looks so fondly on our years. I had one person write to me and said, "You get to go back to the mother ship," which I loved. It's you know, it's like there is sort of a little cell that begins growing when you're at Eastman. And the way I describe it to a lot of my students is that no one school teaches you everything, but what it does is, if you're facing this direction in life, the school can point you in this direction. And you don't always see all the results immediately, but exponentially, those paths are hugely different. And as Nicole said, I'm so impressed with the students here. They are extremely smart. They're extremely proactive. Everybody just arrives every week on their A game. And unlike some other places, the Eastman students are very collaborative and extremely supportive of one another. And you witness that when we have our departmentals in the recital halls. So all the studios come together and you hear a large assortment of singers, and they go crazy for one another because they love each other so much. And it's just really inspiring to see them. And I have to say, for my part, and I tell pianists this who want to go into vocal coaching, and conductors who want to go into opera conducting, the one requirement for that is that you must love singers. And I love singers. Maybe they don't think so all the time, but I love singers. And you know what? I try to set them up in a way that gives them the greatest strength when they leave the school, so that they can become independent artists. Not feeling like they have to rely on anyone but themselves and their creativity. So I can't say enough about the education here. I think I truly do feel that the undergrads get the best education of anywhere in this country. And we'll tell you a little bit about that later, and you'll hear what we have. But good luck on your journey, and I'm glad you guys are considering Eastman. We would love to hear all of you.
That's great. Thank you all so much. And so I'd actually like to pick up right where you left off, Tim, with that idea that it is a very special place to do your undergrad, and it sets you up for whatever comes next. And so now is a good time, I think, to shift from this, all of this wonderful big picture stuff, which as an Eastman alum myself, I'm just sitting here like, yeah. And get into some of the nuts and bolts of the curriculum and how it works, and what the sort of day-to-day experience for the voice students is. I'd love if we could talk a little bit about, and this can go, to anyone in any order, whoever wants to chime in, about how the different parts of the voice curriculum work together. So they have lessons, they have coachings, they have, opera workshop, all these acting classes, all these different things that they have to do. Languages are part of it. How do they all work together, and what's unique about how we offer these courses?
Well, I'll start with kind of an overview. I mean, the undergraduate experience is, in voice in particular, is pretty solidly mapped out from the first year all the way through the senior year. And that is a good thing, because we are attempting to be as comprehensive as we can possibly be in preparing singers for success. And I appreciate Tim speaking about that quality that really results. So you start with piano, you start with Italian in your first year, you start with oral skills, which are incredibly important for singers, because we don't touch another thing as we try to figure out where our notes come from. You are in a choral ensemble that teaches you ensemble skills, but you're treated as a solo singer, not just as this sort of, joined at the hip kind of style of choral singing that you may have experienced in your schooling thus far. It's much more musically satisfying and much more sensitive to the nature of you wishing to be a solo singer. So those are a few of the things that start you off in your first year, and then we teach a different language to students each year. So you add cumulatively Italian, and then German, and then French, and then the senior year is usually a time where students will take a second year of a language and continue to specialize, or to maybe discover another language that they haven't had an opportunity to study.
I have a student said to me the other day that they are taking 4 years of Italian. So they're going to take their first year at Eastman. They're going to go to the River Campus, which is our university that we're part of. And you take a shuttle to get there and can choose to continue your language study in a particular language while you're also taking German and Italian, German and French in the following years. So we do have this, university where a lot of people take extra classes to, if you're not busy enough, there's a lot to keep you busy. But yeah, that's absolutely right. It's very comprehensive. And I believe we have a jury at the end of freshman and sophomore year, and then a junior recital, followed by the senior recital. So I know some universities would do juries after every semester or every quarter. We do one jury at the end of the year, so you can really concentrate on perfecting the repertoire you're given and working on technique. But there's a lot of other opportunities to perform, which we'll go into later, but that is a part of the structure of our undergraduate degree.
One of the things that I'm most impressed with is, to fill out some of this, is the way languages work at Eastman, because languages are hugely important for singers, and that's often where people are lacking. But again, I've never seen another place like this. The freshman year is, we're first years now, that's what we call you guys. So first years have Italian language and Italian diction in the same year. And the first year jury is geared towards Italian repertoire. So the second year, they focus on German language and German diction for the entire year. That jury is focused on German repertoire. For the junior year, Nicole is right. It's not exactly a typical jury, because they are basically 30-minute performances that all of the junior singers give. And in that year, they focus on French language and French diction. And they combine all of those languages for that 30-minute performance. And the jury itself is open to the public. So it is sort of like a segue into the recital. And by the senior year, you simply do the recital. So this results in an extremely strong education with foreign languages. And it shows. I mean, you go to other places, and I've heard this from colleagues, when they have Eastman students arrive for grad school, they're on a different level than everybody else. So it's just extremely impressive. And I suppose I could talk about coaching a bit as well. We have 6 coaches at Eastman, and I am one of those. And so for each of the undergrad years, you have a different coach, which is also a wonderful education, because everybody coaches with different styles, and it's nice to get used to that. You get a 45-minute coaching every other week for every year that you're here. In grad school, I coach first-year masters and first-year doctorate, and my colleague Russell Miller coaches the second-year master's degree singers and the second-year DMA singers as well. And part of, I think, the good luck of that is that I conduct operas. So in the first year, I get to know the singers pretty well and know their capabilities, which it helps in casting the operas. For the master's degree students, they do their recitals in the second year, and Russell Miller is an expert in song literature. I don't know anyone who knows more than he does, and so it works out ideally for that. All of these coachings go hand in hand with the language requirements for the undergrad singers. The master's degree singers are a bit more flexible. We work on, with my coachings, we work on actually score study. We look at analyzing harmony in combination with text and learning actually how to make decisions, because in classical music, we're often taught by obeying and sometimes not asking questions. Well, my teaching is like, I sort of force feed people into learning how to ask questions of themselves and answer them based on the score and look at meaning. And we have a great time. And I don't know, I love working with the singers here. I just finished at 6:30 and I'm still energetic because, you know, in times when you're really tired, I have insomnia. So sometimes I sleep maybe 3 hours a night. And then I get to my rehearsals and it just invigorates me because everybody is so excited to be there. I think should I talk about the acting portion of opera?
Please.
Yeah, let's maybe come right back to that. But while this would be a great segue into a little bit about opera in general. And you've already drawn some distinctions between the undergraduate curriculum and the master's curriculum, which is great because I think we will have people interested in both programs. But could you talk a bit about, you know, the opera and casting and how undergraduates and graduates are participating in that?
Sure. Well, first of all, we do a total of 4 shows at Eastman per year, and I do call them shows because I like show biz. And so our fall opera is usually a chamber opera in beautiful Kilburn Hall, and that's with a full set, lighting sets, a chamber orchestra. And usually in the winter, like late January, early February, we do a winter opera up in our black box studio. And that is, again, full sets, costumes, lighting, and usually with piano or a very small chamber ensemble. We do a grand opera in April, which is in Kodak Hall, which is one of the most beautiful halls in the country. And in this, we have a full orchestra, we have full sets, lighting, costumes. It's quite elaborate, and we do big productions in there. And then we end for a May show, which comes out of a class in acting for singers. And this year we're doing Mozart Mayhem, which is get at Mozart Mayhem, and it involves a lot of Mozart finales and ensembles, and that happens in 804 as well. So the way auditions work currently is that we hold auditions in late spring for the fall show. So we don't allow incoming students to do the first show, but they are allowed to audition for further shows. First year singers do not participate in opera. And I'll tell you what you do get as an undergrad here. We prepare you to be involved in opera. For the acting component, the first years focus on movement for the entire year. So you learn how to move on stage, you learn stage craft. The second years focus on just acting, no singing, but straight acting, learning how to do monologues, learning how to do scenes with others. And again, this is all preparing your stage craft, which is a very important thing that I think a lot of people don't really think about. We think about singing and communicating, but not actually the technical parts of how do I move best on stage to be heard, to be seen, to be a good colleague even. The third year becomes lyric theater, which is when you do start singing in acting class. You're basically combining the first 2 years of knowledge and then singing, pulling together the movement, pulling together the acting, pulling together the singing. In the fourth year, you get a scenes program. So again, you've been prepared to do all of this and stand on your feet, and you get to do an opera program in your fourth year. In addition, after your first year, when you're not in a show, the undergrads are required to be in 2 operas. So that could be, we have a lot of undergrads who get cast as principals in our operas. We have some very talented people, and they're sometimes just shockingly good. So we have that, and then we have for the grad students 2 acting courses that you can take with our artistic director of opera. We have advanced opera seminar, which is focused on aria work. So they're working on the drama, the acting of presenting an aria, and just learning how to be your best self in your auditions. Another course that we have is Fundamentals of the Singing Actor, which is taught by our associate artistic director of opera, Stephen Carr. And this is basically a crash course in stage technique, dialogue, movement, stage combat, and audition technique. So even if you didn't go here for an undergrad, you're going to get a lot of these same aspects of education by coming in and taking these graduate courses. So in the end, we do double cast our shows most often, and we often have covers as well. So there are many, many opportunities to perform on stage. And I have to say, because of COVID restrictions this fall, I'm very proud of what we're doing. We're doing something called Our Voices. And instead of doing a full opera, we have engaged 6 of the leading vocal composers in the world, including the 2020 Pulitzer Prize winner, to work with our students. So they've helped curate programs for our students. And so they're coaching them on Zoom. And we have recorded piano parts in Kodak Hall. And then we have our singers recording in Kilburn Hall against the green screen, where they're taking part in their costumes, in the background set that they're using, and basically the entire acting experience. We have 3 cameras set up that can zoom in and move in Kilburn Hall. And I've seen some stills, they're incredible. I couldn't believe it, what I was seeing, even just the early stages of this, because they're using a lot of really creative lighting and makeup. And we're basically learning how to move the future of opera forward. Because, you know, once we're past COVID, I think we're going to keep using some of these techniques because they are so innovative and fascinating. And why not move into the 21st century? So that is what we're doing. And we're also at the same time rehearsing our February opera, which is Dominic Argento's Postcard from Morocco. And I'm in the middle of doing those rehearsals right now. And I think that's about it for the operas. Yes.
Is anybody outside of Eastman going to be able to see these productions?
Well, that's a good question. Yes, because we are actually releasing Our Voices in a festival format. So this is going to be happening in December. Night after night, there will be a new release of portions of our program. And what will happen is that you will see about an hour-long performance of singers, or maybe slightly less than that. And then our composers are actually doing talks. So you will hear each composer that's represented giving a talk about Eastman and about their works and about the songs that are being presented. So yes, they will go up online. Everybody will be able to see that. For the February opera, we're actually making a film version of the opera. So what we're doing is I'll be rehearsing the orchestra. I will record the orchestra. And then we're building a set in our scene shop. And that's a great thing. We have our own scene shop. We have our own technical directors. We have a full staff at Eastman working on all of these aspects of opera. So we will go into the scene shop and we are going to film there. The singers will record with the orchestra soundtrack. We will film in the scene shop and combine it all together. And this will be released probably in March or so, and everybody will be able to see that. For our last opera in April, we are pretty sure that we're going to be able to do a live streamed opera in Kodak Hall. And it remains to be seen if we will have an audience, but our brilliant director, Stephen Carr, has come up with a concept of using masks as part of their costumes. So we won't have that issue. We will be singing through masks. We'll have a chamber opera in the pit, chamber orchestra in the pit, and we will be masked as well. So fingers crossed that that stays, because I cannot wait to be doing opera. Next week, I get all singers in a room together to rehearse the opera, and it's like Christmas for me. I cannot wait until that happens.
That's great. I just have to interject as the, I don't think I ever actually introduced myself, by the way. I'm the Dean of Admissions at Eastman, Matthew Artizone, and as that person, I'm really excited actually that this year our opera performances will be more accessible to our applicants and prospective students than in any other year. You know, I know in past years we've sometimes co-aligned one audition day with an opera performance, you know, and so maybe people could stay and see it. So that's great that they'll be up, and make sure you do take advantage of that and tune in. While we're on that topic of opera and sort of performance opportunities in general, I wonder if either of our studio professors would like to chime in on other performance opportunities that the singers have outside of the opera theater.
Well, I was inspired to think about things that when Tim was talking about all these phenomenal acting courses and ways to really learn stagecraft. I mean, when I was an undergraduate, I got nothing. So I think it's rather miraculous that I ended up actually learning how to perform well on stage. But what I did as an undergrad, and what I was really excited about learning about Eastman when I came here, is that we have a phenomenal Collegium Musicum, which is an early music ensemble that is run by one of the world-renowned lutenists named Paul Odette. And he's been at it for a good long while. He knows repertoire that no one can imagine, that one person could just have at his fingertips. And so singers are highly featured in these early music performances. And the glory of music of that time is that it was all sung by solo singers. And so this is an opportunity for many of our undergrads as well as our graduate students. It's really an open call, if you will, for folks who are interested in learning more about performance of early music, to audition and be a part of this ensemble, even for one semester. It's not something where you're conscripted to be there for an extended period of time, but each semester they do 2 different performances. And Paul Odette looks at who's in the room and says, okay, I know what we're going to do. And it's going to feature all the singers as soloists in one way or another. And we have early instruments. We have a growing group of students who play lute and theorbo and harpsichord and Baroque violin and on and on. We have even a set of Baroque timpani in the school. So there's this wonderful world of early music, which I discovered as an undergraduate myself. And it made me feel as if I could be a soloist inside of this other realm. So that is just one of the glories of Eastman, that we have such a high quality and really enthusiastic pursuit of early music. And I'll flip it over, and contemporary music is also very, very prominent in our student body. We have at least 4 or 5 composition teachers. Matthew, you might correct me if I'm wrong about that. So there's a really healthy group of students who are composition majors. And just a case in point, this week, one of the students in my studio got asked by a student composer to perform a piece on November 12th. So poof, in a couple of weeks, here's this new piece. No one's ever heard it before. No one's ever done it before. And this first-year student is getting a chance to work with a living composer, other collaborators playing instruments, and is going to put her stamp on a piece that no one else has ever had a chance to touch. So, and the excitement and the opportunity to do that is not something that you will find everywhere. And the support that the school, all the faculty give to their students to participate in this kind of cross-pollination and this collaborative effort is something that I find is really a hallmark of Eastman. So I'll just throw those 2 things out for you to hear about other kinds of performing oppositions. And I know Nicole has some other ones she'll mention.
I want to say that's really great that you pointed out with the composers at Eastman, because of the composition program here is fantastic. And I had the same experience that when I was going in my undergrad, I was able to learn and perform works by, turns out now, decades later, they are award-winning composers that are still performing. And again, to echo what Professor Long said, you run into Eastman graduates everywhere in the business. It's like a secret society, but it's not secret. We are like something like a fraternity or a sorority or so. We kind of like look out for each other. So I found that to be like a really weird, amazing benefit of graduating. That's like, oh, you're an Eastman grad? Okay, come into the circle. So that was really nice. But to go back to the performing experiences, very true. And the Baroque music and modern music, but also we have this is an unusual year, so I don't have a number to throw out, but there are various departmental recitals that I think Professor Long was speaking about, where you get to perform in front of your peers, and several each semester you get to do this, as well as various master classes. We have world-class artists come and conduct master classes, and so you'll have that opportunity to audition for that, and it's often divvied out, so we have plenty of opportunities for various singers in various studios to do that. We have 3 competitions as part of the university music school, and that is always fun because you can prepare you for those, and that's something that's kind of a safe thing to do in the school, because you will be doing lots of competitions upon graduation and in your career. So it's good to do this during school. It's wonderful to have that. And as well, we have choral ensembles. And there are always solos within the choral ensembles that you will have the opportunity to audition for. And, you know, I've talked to my undergraduates, and that's the thing that they need the most when they enter, is opportunities to perform in front of people. And so they're also creating their own. This is an unusual year, of course. We have social distancing, so we're all doing it sort of via Zoom, but we're finding every opportunity to sing for each other and to prepare for all this myriad of opportunities that the school offers. I, upon entering years ago, thought, am I gonna be able to do anything? And by the time I was done, I had a nice opera roll under my belt. I had a handle opera roll, lots and lots of departmental experience, and then by the time I got to my senior recital, it wasn't too scary. So you should have plenty of opportunity to perform if you come here.
That's great. And just to close out that topic a bit, there were a couple of questions about exploring other areas as a voice student. There was one question about jazz, which I've answered in the Q&A already. We do have a jazz program, but not vocal jazz specifically, although singers could take some of the coursework if they were so interested, like improvisation classes and that sort of thing. But what about exploring other areas? We've touched on choral singing, which is of course part of the curriculum, even in this, you know, decidedly pre-operatic training program, if you will. What about musical theater? How is that ever accessible to students in this program?
Well, you know, our show that was sadly canceled last spring was going to be Sweeney Todd. So, and we had an assortment of styles of singing. Of course, Sweeney does require, you know, operatic singing. There are some that are belting, and our faculty is pretty open. I think our faculty like people to communicate and sing well. And we realize, you know, through early music, through opera, through choral singing, that all of those can be achieved at Eastman. So we're very open to musical theater. I personally love musical theater. I love belters. That's what I do when I have insomnia. I watch YouTube late at night watching belters, Tony Award performances. But in recent years, Sweeney Todd, there's been The Light in the Piazza that was done here the last 5 years. So there is quite a bit that has happened. And I know before I arrived, they've had guest speakers, including Patty Lupone, Adam Gettle, and Kristen Chenoweth come through talking to our students. So it is very well supported.
That's great. I want to shift gears a little bit towards just keeping an eye on the time and knowing that this is application season. This is, you know, for those of you who are seniors, you're thinking a lot about this. And of course, everything is different this year. We, like most other music schools, are not hosting live auditions on campus in the February. It's the spring semester. Well, I won't say anything further about Eastman and Rochester in February, but it's beautiful, trust me. But I know that there's a lot of questions that we're starting to get in the admissions office about just the making of the recording. And so I'm just curious if you all have tips for singers making audition recordings where, you know, especially this year, the recording counts, you know, as as the audition experience. This is how you will be assessing the singers. So I'm gonna ask a leading question to get us started. This must mean that they have to spend lots and lots of money and go into a really fancy studio and work with a professional engineer and make the best recording possible, right? No. So what are some tips?
I can speak for probably all of our voice teachers to say we've had months and months and months of listening to singing online. So I'm well versed in what a good microphone and a bad microphone sound like. And I don't think it actually, at this point, our ears are tuned enough to know if the recording equipment is whatever you can provide, whatever you can come up with, we'll hear your voice. We are hoping that you are able to provide accompaniment. Maybe can you remind me what it was apps, recorded accompaniment, what else?
Yeah, we're basically, and allowing whatever form of accompaniment you can kind of get your hands on that works best for you. So if you can work with somebody live, albeit safely distanced with masks, the pianist does not have to be visible in the frame of your shot, whatever it takes to do that safely. If you're comfortable with that, that's great. If not, then don't do that. And we would accept, there are these apps out there. Of course, in the moment, I can't think of the names of any of them, but
accompanist.
Yeah, so that would be fine. Some people have a pianist that they work with regularly. Maybe the pianist could record for you. That they know your tempo, they know, well, your key, I hope, and they can provide that recording for you to then lay over and sing a second track essentially on top of the accompaniment recording. And if you are a gifted pianist and you're comfortable doing it and can accompany yourself, that would work as well. The one thing we are saying is that it should be accompanied and not done a cappella.
And not masked. I know you mentioned masked. It's probably common sense, but we would like to see your face, and we would like to hear you, assuming that you are adhering to the repertoire requirements. We want to hear you at your best. So I always think we can all say that we don't need something fancy, something that's beyond your capabilities. We just want to hear what you sing the best, and giving us communication and joy in your singing. If you can find the time to make sure that you've coached the languages, and we can see that you've worked on the languages that you're singing in, and that you are put together professionally, those are all pluses. But mainly, I think we can all hear a beautiful note when it's recorded. And so I wouldn't stress too much about making a very expensive, fancy recording of repertoire that is 10 years beyond your your level. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we really, for our undergraduates, we really prefer not to hear operatic arias. We want to hear you singing something that we call age appropriate, and also something that really represents you. And I love how Nicole spoke about that. It isn't about the repertoire. And that is a very, very difficult thing to get into your mind, that we are not judging you on your repertoire. This is not the same as maybe some other instruments where there is a sort of graded repertoire that, boy, well, you better be doing grade 6 repertoire, you better be doing grade 7 repertoire. I know that some high schools will have graded repertoire in some of their competitions, but we are not looking at those kinds of lists. We are not evaluating you on the repertoire. We're evaluating you on what you bring to the performance and your attention to detail, your love of singing, the free and healthy functioning of your instrument, the mastery that you display of even something that might look rather simple on the page. There is much sophistication in almost any musical piece that you would choose, and you have an opportunity to be the chooser and not just to second guess what you think we might want to hear.
And I'll just throw in there a couple of things that we sort of tell everybody about making recordings in general is start on the early side, have a couple of goes at it, make sure you listen back to it, have your teacher listen back to it. Sometimes that first time you record yourself and hear yourself singing, it's kind of like a shock. It's like hearing your recorded spoken voice for the first time. It doesn't sound like you, it sounds unnatural. And so you need to get used to hearing what you sound like on a recording, and be satisfied with it. So just a decent microphone, a lot of these sort of plugins to your phone will even work quite well. And making sure you're satisfied with the sound you're making, your teacher is satisfied, and that it sounds like you, I think is sort of the key. And this leads really nicely into a question I was going to ask anyway, and then it came up in the Q&A. So now I'm definitely going to ask it, which is just what are we looking for in an Eastman student? And I think that can be answered both from the perspective of what the faculty looks for in the audition, and then I'll be happy to chime in on what we look for in our what we call file review.
Well, I do think that that's an important factor, is that your application is given an extremely thorough and thoughtful read and evaluation. Many, many aspects of what your application contains are carefully reviewed and all sized up to get as complete a picture of who you are and how ready you are for this level of university and conservatory training. And we don't want to just make it seem like, oh, it's this impossible dream and you could never qualify, you could never be good enough. That's not true at all. It's just, we care that much that we want to make sure that we really do examine and leave no stone unturned, shall we say, for really making sure that you are included in our evaluations and that you are given as fair an opportunity to be heard and to be evaluated as possible. So I think this is one of the things that may be misunderstood when you have a school that has a reputation or has really high-powered faculty, and one makes all kinds of assumptions about what that actually means. And I think you will understand when you come into contact with us maybe more definitively in putting your application in, that we are a group of people that are extremely knowledgeable, but we're also extremely welcoming. And we are looking for people who are eager and willing to put the time and energy into developing their talent.
Perfect. Yeah, and just teachability is always my thing. If I hear a note, and I know one note, you can often tell if the voice is there. This is why keeping it simple on your audition recordings is really important, to keep it simple so we can hear as many beautiful sounds as possible. But having a receptive attitude, positive attitude, good energy, you can often tell in the audition process if a student has these things. And if you are receptive to hearing what needs to be worked on, for me, that's almost the #1 thing I'm looking for in a student, because that's when the growth happens. You can come in and have a very rough instrument, and by the time you're done, if you've practiced and been receptive and not defensive, then you're already like tortoise in the hare. You're already ahead of the curve.
Yeah, so I'm hearing more potential versus ready for the opera stage, which we don't tend to hear in a 17, 18-year-old singer in any case, right?
Well, and we could also extend that to our graduate, our graduate applicants who may be with us tonight, that, 4 years of training is not just a drop in the bucket. I mean, it's more than that. It's very, very formative years of your vocal instrument developing over that course of the sort of, let's say, 17 to 21 or 18 to 22 years old. But it's not the end of it. I mean, any of us can say with absolute certainty that our education continued long after our degrees were hanging on our walls. And I will also tell you that the faculty, even those of us that are with you tonight, we are all still learning. I mean, someone brought me a piece that I'd never seen before in a lesson this week, and I just went, this is so fascinating. I want to know more about it. We are hungry for knowledge, and we stay that way our whole lives. So you should feel as an entering graduate student that this is a prime time for you to come and fix all the stuff that you can fix in the time that we're together. Just absorb as much information and as much feedback as you can from this very, very willing faculty that wants to share all we have to share.
I would like to add to that for our grad students, because I am the one who coaches the incoming grad students, that we get a lot of students from smaller schools around the country. And so you may be hearing the undergrad curriculum at Eastman and thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so far behind, but that's not necessarily the case. So we have a lot of students who come from smaller schools, and it is part of my job to help you fill in the gaps. So I actually have great fun in teaching foreign language diction and how to translate languages and just how to look at music. So don't fear if you're at a school where you haven't had all the diction courses or all the language courses or any of these things that we've been talking about, because you will catch up very, very quickly once you're here.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. I'll just add in what we do in the admissions office is essentially review the students that are recommended to us by the faculty. So the application process is very much driven by the audition as, you know, the primary, you know, it's the first stop, if you will, and you have to get past that point to continue further in the process. And then, you know, as Professors Cabell and Szynski were talking at the beginning about what excites them about being here, and they were talking about the students, and there were words like intelligent and astute, and I think Professor Long chimed in with proactive and collaborative. You know, these are really things that we're looking for, and you know, we want to see that, you know, so we rely on the faculty to tell us that they have the blossoming artistry, is how I think of it. You know, that they're on their way as far as that goes. We're looking for those signs of intellectual curiosity, you know, which of course we can assess through grades and what your recommenders say, maybe through what you write about in your personal statement. We also just want to get a sense of who you are. The personal statement or the essay is really your opportunity to tell us something about yourself that is not going to come through to us through the audition and through your grades, or through your resume for that matter. It's not about your accomplishments and your achievements. That is what a resume is for. But the personal statement will tell us something, you know, unique about you. And our process has prompts for all of these things. So we're going to tell you, if you go into the application and think, you know, what should I write about for the personal statement? We'll give you a topic and you just have to respond to it. And then it's just about responding honestly and from yourself, and sharing something about yourself that we wouldn't otherwise know if we hadn't read that. And then that last thing is that sort of, you know, the collaborative spirit thing. I guess, you know, the person who wants to be part of this community that we're describing, who wants to participate, who wants to support their peers and be part of that energy. And that's something that's harder for you to tell us about yourself. We might get that sort of through the recommendations, but we also get that. That's part of the two-way street of this whole process of, you know, applicants are looking for a good match, a good educational match in a school. We're looking for students that fit what we do. And it's really our hope that through attending programs like this, doing the actual process, connecting with the faculty, that's one thing we should touch on that we didn't yet, is that our faculty are very much open to being contacted by prospective students, and they do schedule, as some of you may have already, lessons even during this time when those lessons are needing to be remote. So take advantage of all of that. There's so much more we could talk about, and having these three folks together and just myself, I'm thinking of more questions I want to ask, and there are a few questions that we haven't gotten to. And I'm not sure we can get to all of them, but I did want to touch base. A couple of people have asked about what is the plan for fall 21? Do we have a plan in place? And I can just quickly say that what was about a week ago, we figured out what we're doing this spring. And so, you know, every step of this planning process has been sort of, you know, wait and see. And so we've been waiting to see, you know, how the fall went. This was, you know, this was something that took a long time to plan over the summer, really starting last spring, to figure out, working with our medical center staff and following the guidelines of the county and the governor, what would be possible and what would be safe to come back together and make music together. And the basic model is that we're in person, as you've been hearing the faculty describe, for the lessons and the ensembles and the music making part of the curriculum. And most of the other classes, theory class, your humanities coursework, have gone online. And so the students are really doing this sort of hybrid approach, but they're here and they're masked and they're distancing. And actually, you know, I'm going to knock on the wood paneling of my little box here, but it's been working. We've at Eastman had a 0 case count, and at the River campus in general, it's been very low relative to what we're seeing at other schools. And I think that's really driven by the community that you've been hearing the faculty talk about, and the students really drawing that connection between, if I want to be able to keep making music with my peers and with the faculty in the same room, I have to follow these guidelines. And so the masking has been very rigorous, and everybody's been observing the distancing. It's been great to see. So the plan right now is to do that again in the spring, essentially. I think we just don't know yet what fall 21 will look like. I think our hope is that it won't involve any more restrictions than we currently have. And of course, our greater hope, because we're learning to hope now in increments, right? Our greater hope is that it could be even more, integrated in person than it is right now, but we're just going to have to wait and see. So this class that's now applying to start in fall 21 will have a level of uncertainty, just like the last class that applied to enter this fall had to deal with. But one thing you have going for you is just a little bit more experience in how these different scenarios can work, and knowing what works for you. So that's all I can say for now, because honestly, I just really don't know anymore about what the fall will look, other than to say, stay tuned, keep in touch, and as we decide things, we will certainly be communicating them out. So with that, I'm mindful of the hour and the fact that Professor Long just got home from teaching at 6:30 and that his dog needs to be fed. And I'm sure that's true of many of you as well. But I will be going through the questions in the Q&A that we didn't get to, and we will sort of divvy those up and circle back to you with whoever is best positioned to answer that question. So don't despair if we didn't get to your question. And of course, we're signing off, but we are here. So you can write to us at any point. The faculty emails are on the website. You can always contact us through the admissions office, and we'll be happy to continue this conversation. So to my panel, thank you so much for joining us. And to all of you, thank you for tuning in. And we look forward to seeing you in the future. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks.
Good night.